Good morning, church. I wanted, first of all, before I do anything else, I want to thank Pastor Gary for allowing me to sit here this morning. I'm not going to preach. I'm going to do some teaching here today. So I want to welcome all of you to being here and hope you're all safe. I want to quote someone that I worked with for about 34 years. His name is James DeSalvo. 34 years. He was about 34 years old. His name is James DeSalvo, and whenever an issue came up, James would always say, "This too shall pass." And I need you to know that this too shall pass. Amen. So I'm going to read today Joshua 1:9 in the New International Version. Okay. And it says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." And I also want to talk to you a little bit about being an encourager. In 1 Thessalonians 2:12, Paul described his work as encouraging, comforting, urging us to live lives worthy of God. But even Paul needed encouragement. Look, we all need to look to someone to be our encourager. Church, every one of us have faced situations in our lives when we just wanted to give up and run away from our problems. Currently, we're all going through some things that in my 69 years of life I have never seen, or honestly, I never thought that would happen in this country and this coronavirus thing that we're going through. When Paul wrote to the church in Thessalonica, he encouraged them with these words: "Therefore, encourage one another and build up one another." Paul was an encourager. An encourager will walk alongside you. And that's what we need to do. We need to walk alongside each other and help and comfort one another through these times. The night before Jesus was crucified, Jesus told the disciples that even though he was leaving them, that the Holy Spirit would replace him here. Jesus, church, should be our primary source of encouragement. He should be the person that we look to as an encourager. Jesus' teachings were filled with words of encouragement. Jesus encourages us in his speech and his actions. Jesus encourages us through prayer. In Matthew 7:7 it says, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will open." He encourages us through his prayers. Amen. Jesus was an encourager in his forgiveness. In John 8:11, Jesus showed the importance and benefits of forgiving others. What did he tell a prostitute? He told her, "Go and sin no more." Jesus spoke words of encouragement in his provision for us. In Matthew 14:19-21, He turned 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish and fed a crowd of 5,000 people. That should encourage you. Jesus encouraged us in his protection. In Mark 6:47 through 51, when the disciples were caught in a storm, what did Jesus do? He calmed the storm. He calmed the storm. Don't tell me that boat of disciples were not encouraged because of that. Jesus and healing is our encourager. Matthew 10:46 through 52 says Jesus was not too busy to heal a blind man. Remember Bartimaeus? A blind beggar who shouted out his name. I can see that now. Bartimaeus is in a crowd, a huge crowd, and he's trying to get Jesus' attention, and the crowd is telling him to shut up. And I'm paraphrasing, I know. The crowd is telling him to shut up. But Bartimaeus knew that Jesus was his encourager. And he hollered at Jesus, 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 Son of David. What happened? Jesus turned around and encouraged Bartimaeus by giving him back his sight.
Yes.
Amen.
Jesus encourages us in life issues. In John 11:38 through 44, when Mary and Martha were grieving when their brother Lazarus died, Jesus showed up. He showed his power by doing what? By raising Lazarus back to life. What an encourager he was to Mary and Martha. Jesus in caring for us is our encourager. In John 19:26 through 27, even when Jesus hung on a cross and he was suffering, he encouraged his mother and told John to take care of her. What final words could he have given to his family more than that to be an encourager?
Yeah.
Jesus spoke encouragement in his speech and showed encouragement in his actions. So how can we demonstrate forms of encouragement? Well, I wrote a few things down here. We need to give sincere compliments to people. And I said the key word there is sincere. Don't give somebody a compliment if it's going to be a discouragement. Make sure that everything that you speak is an encouragement. We need to speak the truth in love, and sometimes that hurts. Let me tell you something. I have a friend of mine, he's almost a family member, who does a lot of work for me around the house. And for the last 2 years when he's come to me, he said, "Oh, Al, I'm praying for Laura to love me. Oh, Al, I'm praying for Laura to be my wife. Oh, Al, I'm praying for Laura to do this." And last time he was here, just last week, he said the same thing. And finally I said, and it's hard to talk to somebody that you love and say something negative that really is positive. And I told him, "Steve, you need to remember that no is an answer to prayer." We don't understand it, but when God tells us no, it's a form of encouragement.
That's right.
We need to pray for people when they ask us to pray for them. What better encourager can you be than when you pray for somebody? The best examples that I have is Margie and my wife Sherry. Listen, don't ask one of those ladies to pray for you if you don't expect them to pray for you. And sometimes they'll do it right there where you're standing. What better form of encouragement is there than that? Listen. You need to correct people when it's appropriate. I sat under a pastor, I'm not going to mention his name, and he was kind of like a bully. And the reason I say that is, one day I was talking about communion, and I said something about a drop of blood hit a soldier and it was a waste of blood. Well, he stopped me right there in the middle of church with the room packed full of people and corrected me. Yes, I needed correction, but not then. You have to have the right time and the right place to correct somebody. So it's a form of encouragement, not a form of embarrassment. Another form of encouragement is we need to comfort and assure people when they need it. Listen, with everything going on with this coronavirus thing, we're going to have to be doing a lot of that, and we need to be ready to do that. Something that we need to do that's a form of encouragement is we need to say thank you to people. People will tell us things and we'll walk away and not say anything. How simple is it to say thank you and encourage somebody? And here's another form of encouragement. We need to always, I'm going to say that again, we need to always pray for one another. So how can we be encouragers with our actions? We need to offer a smile. Don't walk around like the whole world's come to an end. Walk around with a smile on your face. You are not going to believe how that would encourage people.
Amen.
Listen to this one. And listen, I'm talking to me now like if there's a mirror in front of me. Don't interrupt people when they're talking to you. Listen to them. My biggest fault is people will be talking to me and I want to say something so bad that I get in the middle of the conversation and interrupt them. Don't do that. Be a good listener. What better form of encouragement there would be than for us to be good listeners? Here's a hard one. Here's a hard one for encouragement. We need to find forgiveness. We need to find forgiveness. Jesus forgave a man. He washed his feet the night before he was crucified, and he forgave Judas, even without ever even having to say anything. Not only did that encourage Judas, but I'm sure that the other disciples were encouraged by that as well. Another thing that we need to do to be good encouragers is we need to point out people's accomplishments. We need to point out when somebody does something good. We need to be there and say, hey, what a great job that was. Another thing that we need to do, and here's a hard one, we need to accept people as they are. Accept people as they are. God wants to take us where we need to go. He doesn't care too much about where we've been. So we need to accept people as they are. Another form of encouragement is we need to point people in the right direction. We need to be examples of our lives. We need to point people in the way that they have to go. Somebody asked me one time, well, what's the best way to preach? And I told him by not speaking, because we need to point people in the right direction. We need to motivate people to do their best. Encourage people. Listen, God made winners. He didn't make losers. And we need to encourage people and send them in the right direction.
Amen.
So I want to ask you two questions, and I'm almost done. I want to ask you two questions. The first one is, do you know someone who is in or was in your life and was an encourager? I have a long list, and I'm going to start with my mom and dad. They were the example of who I am today. My mother was the world's best encourager. My dad was one of those people who didn't encourage you by words, but by his actions. My dad worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table for us. He encouraged me to be a man like him. Here's some more encouragers that have been in my life. My wife, Sherry, my daughter, Kathy, and my daughter, Stacy. They've always been there to encourage me. Even when I was sick back in October, boy, they showed me encouragement like I've never felt it before. Another person that's been a form of encouragement for me is Mark Farrar, Pastor Mark Farrar. Mark lived with us for several years, and now he's a pastor. And I might say he's a very encouraging pastor. If you hear him preach, you'll know what I'm talking about. And thirdly, the last person I'm going to mention as an encourager to me was my pastor, Gary. I've been doing this thing called ministry for quite a while. But never, I mean never, N-E-V-E-R, never has somebody encouraged me to do what we do in ministry more than Pastor Gary Asbury. I love him. I respect him. He is my encourager. Secondly, and in closing, have you encouraged anybody lately? It doesn't take a lot. Remember the smile thing? We need to be encouragers. So I need to ask you, have you encouraged anybody lately? And as I close today, I want to encourage all of you to please listen to the directions that we receive as we wait for this virus thing to be under control. I want to encourage you and remind you that God is in complete control, and it's Him that we need to lean on in times like this. And in the immortal words of my friend James DeSalvo, this too shall pass. I love you. Please be careful. Stay healthy and listen to directions that we've been given. And even in that, be a good encourager. God bless you.